This week on the OneCast, we're joined by the NPFL's Paul Benson to talk about the league.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.
What's going on, folks? We're having a little bit of fun here. It's Christmas week. By the time you guys are listening to this, Merry Christmas. Hope you guys had a wonderful time with family and friends. Got everything that you guys asked for. But before we jump right into this episode with Mr. Paul Benson, head on over to OneCastFishing.com. Use the code TheOneCast. Save 10% at checkout. Get your hands on those snagless jigs, weedless neds, all the merch, and, of course, those soft plastics, specifically that Nighthawk. It's a game-changing soft plastic. Pair that thing up, throw it any way you want. I promise you it gets bit. And as you guys can see, Ben is holding one up to the camera right now, and he's got that paired. What do you got that paired on, Ben?
Well, that is the 3/8 ounce crawdad flipping jig.
There you go. So if you want to join the snagless revolution, like I said, head on over to OneCastFishing.com. Use the code TheOneCast, all one word, at checkout. And all the way from Pennsylvania, Pete, what do they need to do?
Yeah, they need to head over to CarolinaWatersNC.com. Use the code TheOneCast, all one word, to checkout. Save you some coin. Grab your UPF gear, your casual wear like I'm wearing now. They got hats, they got gloves, they got buffs. If you name it, they've probably got it in outdoor apparel. So it's not just for the angler. If you enjoy being outdoors and want some extra sun protection, make sure you check them out. CarolinaWatersNC.com, code TheOneCast, all one word. And then click the link for Hobie Eyewear in the description below. You can go to our link tree and check them out. Use that link to save some money. Grab you a pair of Hobie Eyewear. We're excited to partner with them again for 2025. They got some new frames coming in the floating series, some other exciting stuff coming. So looking forward to bringing you all of that. They'll actually be on for another episode here in a couple weeks. So they want to come in and talk about some of their new technologies and things they've got coming. So looking forward to having them guys back on. So make sure you use that link, head to Hobie Eyewear, or you can just go to HobieEyewear.com if you want to pay full price. But, be much better if you save some coins. So
help
grab
us
you some
out
of those glasses. Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
And then
Ben?
Yeah, then lastly, so if you've been a long-time listener, a long-time watcher, hopefully you've already done this. But if not, or if you're new here, before your next fishing trip, go on your phone. I don't care if you've got an Android phone, a iPhone. I guess it won't work on a flip phone. But if you got one of those little new smartphones, go to your Play or Apple store and download the Deep Dive app. This is an excellent tool to help you plan your next fishing trip. It's full of features. It's got weather in there, pressure, wind effects in the water with graphics. You can scroll forward and back in time up to about a week out. It's got the best baits to use. I think they call it the best ideas or tournament winning patterns. Right, and all that's built upon previous data they've collected over several years on actual fish catches. And then lastly, on a lot of these lakes out there, it's going to include your water temperature. It's going to include your current. So on those lakes that are pulling a lot of current and that affects your fish, it's going to have that information there as well to help plan your fishing trip. And when you're out in the water, it's also a good tool. If you get stumped a little bit, having quite the success, you can pull it out, get a couple new ideas, because we're all stubborn out there. We keep trying to do the same thing over and over again. Sometimes you just need a reminder, okay, maybe I should try this out. And nudge you a little bit. So it's a great app. It's a great tool. And we love the folks over there at Deep Dive. So make sure you go download it.
Absolutely, man. That app has been phenomenal this year. And I went out the other day and smashed like almost 14 pounds worth of spotted bass using that feature on best areas of the lake to fish, water clarity, and being able to select that specific species that I'm trying to target. I was going to stay away from largemouth because, dude, it's frigid cold. I know Pete's up in Pennsylvania right now. Ben, you're down here. Like it's like in the 20s. It's freaking cold outside. And Pete, we don't have to tell you, you can make frosty up there in Pennsylvania right now because you guys got loaded with snow, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get a ton, but we got enough for me to have my fix for the next 3 years. So,
oh, you ready to come back?
I'm ready to get out of the snow. It's mostly people that don't know how to drive in snow, even though they live in a climate where it snows, and then the North Carolina dudes like showing them what's up. So, yeah, that's the frustrating part. We it snowed. We got in Saturday, and it snowed maybe I don't know, quarter or half inch like in a couple hours, and we left to go to my sister's house, and I took a back road, and there was an icy hill, and I watched like 7 cars wreck on that hill while we were going down it. I just like got right down because it's not that hard, but yeah. So I'm ready to get back to North Carolina and get away from that. Not that it's any better, but at least in North Carolina when we get snow or ice, they just shut everything down, so you don't have to leave your house.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also we got a new partner. We just finalized that whole agreement and everything. So next episode we will announce that one. Yeah, next one. So when we record our next episode, we'll introduce y'all to that, and looking forward to working with that partner over the next year, in addition to the other one. So just a reminder, especially for you, David Fuchs, if you are going to use any of our partners, make sure you use our codes because it helps us out. Or the link.
Yeah. So
he's going to get a complex.
Oh yeah, we're making David super famous on this show. Yeah, not a whole lot going on in the fishing world right now. We're going to talk to Paul Benson here in just a minute from the National Professional Fishing League. BASS just announced, and we're going to do a full deep dive in that later of what their roster looks like for 2025. I posted something on socials today. A great thing to do in the wintertime is get all your gear ready for the next season. One of those being your truck, your trailer. Work on all that stuff. Put some new tires on the truck today, man. Like, I can't tell you going out to these ramps, like how slick it gets, especially if you're not the first boat in the lake, and they pull their trailers out and it starts to ice over like minutes after the fact. So be very careful when you get out there to the ramp, but this is a great time to reorganize your boat and loosen all the drags on your stuff and take all the soft plastics off your hook and all those little tips and things that we tend to forget about during the off season. Next thing you know, you got all your long neck hooks rusted and stuff like that, which those don't rust very fast. But hey, you leave a soft plastic on a hook long enough, it's going to do some damage. So take care of your equipment. That way it takes care of you during the next fishing season. Guys, you got anything before we bring Paul on here?
No, let's bring him on.
All right. Mr. Paul Benson, let's give this a go around all the way from Georgia. You're in Georgia, right?
Yes, sir. Dallas.
No.
Way to confirm before you called it out.
I knew he was in Georgia. I just had to say Georgia like that. But he, I don't know. Maybe you packed your house up and moved it for, so I don't know. But anyways, man, appreciate you.
I got a personal question for Paul before we get into it.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
What is it like to be an Ohio State fan in Bulldogs country? That's got to be a little bit rough.
Not really, because most of them, like all the Georgia fans chirping now. I had to tell a couple of them the other day. I said, "Look, man, you get 5 more championships, like we can start talking." The amazing thing is, like, I had to remind. So our tournament director Sean Mulhall is a Georgia fan. His son Emerson does our fish care on the release boat, and I had to remind Emerson the other day. I said, "Bro, you've only been watching football like 5 years. Like before Nick Chubb, the last good back was Garrison Hurst. So like."
Yeah.
Like you can talk big for the last 3 years, but I can talk big for the last 80. Like we do have to keep things realistic in relation to that. Now, the one thing I don't understand, we don't have conference fans in the Big Ten. Like I'm not rooting for Penn State or Purdue because they're playing an SEC team or whatever. Like, and especially that one team up north that remains nameless. Like, I've never rooted for them under any circumstances. Don't care who they're playing. I'm an Alabama fan for the bowl games this year because of who they're playing. But that being said, like, man, down here, like, there were so many Bulldog fans cheering on Tennessee the other night, and it's like, okay, boys, like, do what you want to do. There were so many Alabama fans cheering on for Tennessee. So I don't get the conference fan base, like in relation to, I like my team, and I've always been a fan of that team and always will be a fan of that team. And it's not that bad, though, in Georgia. It would be a lot worse if I were in Alabama where they've got, more national championships. But I can always I can be like, look, take your 2 and go back to saying I'm technically 3 if you count that one like an 80 or 81, whatever that they supposedly share with somebody or whatever. But it's like we got 8 legit ones. Like come back when you get maybe 3 more.
Well, I gotta know who's the team up north that remains nameless. Who is that?
It's your boys.
It's
I'm
the
not
only
saying
team.
it.
It's the
Wait,
only
is
conference
it-
team I cheer. So I
That's
cheer
why-
for that team one game a year, and it's when they play Ohio State.
Look.
Because my team's wear this color. I think Paul can figure that out.
Well, you can be a Penn State fan. Like they're
Yeah.
the unfortunate thing about Penn State is the blemish that Jerry Sandusky left will never go
I know.
away, and
I
it
know.
tarnished
Mhm.
Joe Paterno's reputation post mortem. Like, or
Yeah.
is that the right saying? Post mortem,
He
like
was-
after he died.
Yeah.
But he was still there when that came out, I think. I think he had to resign. Like they forced him out. If I remember all that right, they had to. I mean, he was like what 90?
Yeah. Like he was getting ready. I mean, he was pretty much on his way out. But yeah, I think he probably would have coached another year. And then when that all came out, because you remember he was coaching from the press box because he couldn't stand on the field anymore.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of respect for Joe Paterno, but a lot less after finding out, like, hey man, because say what you want to say, like you can get into the NIL and all that stuff. Like Ohio State's been paying players. All they did was legitimize it for schools like us. Like we've been paying players since the 70s. Like it just happens. It's at a large enough institution. Our annual enrollment has been over 60,000 since I was a kid. So you're graduating 15,000 kids a year. Your alumni fee is 150, 200. Let's call it $100 just for easy math. But you're graduating 15,000 a year on average for 10 years. That's what, Pete? 150,000 kids, right?
Yeah,
So
150,000.
over 10 years, your alumni fees at $100 a whack times 15,000. Like, do the math. We got plenty of money to spend on players and everything else that we need.
Yeah.
So, not to mention when you get the bigger donors involved and all that type of stuff. So all NIL did was like legitimize it. I'm not against it. I think they need to do something for these kids in relation to money management. But, I've talked to good friends, Brian Robinson, that everybody knows because of his relationship with the fishing industry at Tackle Addict.
Mhm.
He says it like, man, there should be some sort of money management education for these young NFL players, young college players. Like, if you're going to make your payday, like, find a way to manage that to where it's not, well, guess what? Even if it's not the bulk of folks, like, there needs to be some sort of methodology to educate and manage. Heck, I need it. I think they should be teaching how to run a checkbook and what credit cards are in high school, like if we were doing our country right. But that's my soapbox on that.
Do they still make checkbooks?
They do.
Yeah. I actually have had multiple people in the last few weeks on Facebook Marketplace ask if they could pay with a check, and I'm like, no.
If it's Facebook
You
Marketplace, that thing would bounce down the road like a basketball.
I'm in the no. It's all old people. Like I'm not worried about the funds. It's like I'm making $4 off of a toaster. I'm not going to drive to the bank and deposit a check, and I can endorse them and do it on my phone. I am.
You still
up on that.
Okay.
So I'm in the Masonic Lodge, which is an old fraternal organization, and like there's a lot of checkbooks in that joint still. And like you bring up, like, hey guys, if we could donate, if we could donate to lodge fundraisers on Venmo, we'd raise a lot more money, because just digital money. And I get why people don't want to do that, but at the same time, like if somebody calls me up and they're like, hey man, random strangers will be like, hey, here's my Venmo, send me $8. And I'm like, okay, here's $8. I'm stupid.
Yeah.
I just throw money away like an idiot. So,
So you do need that financial management class.
oh, 1 million. I'm up, bro. I promise. Everybody thinks like, oh, well, he's one of the part owners of the NPFL and he sells all this stuff and everything. And like, bro, I promise you, I'm like, if it wasn't for my fiance Tara, I would be like living in a teepee on the side of the road. I have zero common sense when it comes to money. So
if you were all right, Paul, if you were living in a teepee, which state would you live in? The Ohio State?
No, I have said for decades, Ohio is a great place to be from. I like it up there. I like going to visit. My family's still there. My brother still lives there. My parents still live there. Brad and Michelle are from there. So when people ask me, they're like, well, how'd you end up in Georgia? I tell them, I'm like, I tied a snow shovel to the top of my truck. At that time, it was a 1994 Mazda B3000. So essentially a imported Ford Ranger. And even though I think they were made at the Ford factory, but I tied a snow shovel to the top of my truck. And when I got to Emerson, Georgia, this old dude sitting out in front of the gas station's like, what the hell is that tied to the top of your truck? And I said, I'm home. So we don't shovel snow. This weather that we're having now, where it's getting down into like the 20s, like it's offensive. It's offensive. So absolutely just terrible. I'm probably going to have to wind up in the Keys or somewhere either further south, because I'm a cupcake when it comes to cold weather now. Don't like it. Don't want to be around it.
I'm the same way. 100%.
Oh man, I like the cold. I just don't like being cold, if that makes sense.
Absolutely none.
I would
yeah.
I much rather prefer to be 90 degrees, 100% humidity with that warm blanket wrapped around you, because it feels so nice out there, than to be in the 30s or 40s. That's even too cold.
I like to see the snow, but I don't like to live where it snows. You know, like I'm from the nameless place. So being a Wolverines fan, you know,
what part?
I'm from Kalamazoo, Michigan. So
aren't you supposed to be a Spartan from over there?
No, I mean it's hit or miss, you know, like you got those in Lansing that are huge. Obviously that's Spartanville and then Ann Arbor, but Kalamazoo's just to the northwest of that, I guess you would say, or just to the west of that. So I don't know, it's hit or miss. You got blue and green all over that place, but there is one thing that both of those teams come together, and that's when they play the Ohio State. Doesn't matter which team it is, they want, you know, they want the Buckeyes, you know, to perish. Most of them don't even know what a Buckeye is. You know, I had no idea what it was until I Googled it one day. So
Paul's probably got one on his desk. He's like, hold on, I carry one in my pocket.
He's like, I got a coin. I'm about to coin you right now.
No, there's one in my pocket, but I dumped it when I got back to the house. I dumped everything on the counter.
You do have a Buckeye.
I got one laying here somewhere. I got hundreds of them all over the place. So
that's die hard there.
There's an Ohio State birdhouse.
Ohio State.
Look, there's the Ohio State University. Hold on, I gotta change. That thing right there is a little deal on the stadium. I got all kinds of the Ohio State. There's one book that says, Then Tress said to Troy, about Jim Tressel talking to Troy Smith back in the day. There's all kinds of Ohio State
my
stuff.
My favorite thing on that shelf is that mushroom plushie.
I got one more question for you.
That's Gaspo Dixon. I don't know if y'all know Gaspo. Gaspo's famous seasoning, but as far as I understand, I believe myself and Jeremiah Eads are the only two that received those, and that was a Christmas present from Gaspo years ago. And Gaspo is like a brother. He's gone back to college, so he's been out of the. Gaspo is Valerie Dixon's husband. Valerie Dixon is she runs everything with American Bait Works. Formerly was with Strike King. Been in the business for a long time. Valerie and Gaspo are very close friends, and I hate that I don't get to see him as much as I used to. But thank you, Gaspo Dixon, for my mushroom plushie that Pete noticed back there. So
go ahead, Ben.
So I got one more question before I guess we can transit over to fishing and the league.
Yeah.
You've been down the chop house there at Ohio State where Urban Meyer got caught with the finger guns?
Yeah, I've been so all those places like were something at one time or another. I think the chop house that you're referring to is like actually a recruiting hub, which used to be like Buckeye Hall of Fame Cafe. And then before that, it was called like years and years ago, it was called the High Lie. Like Woody Hayes used to recruit folks in there and all kinds of stuff. I think it's the same joint, but most of the place, Columbus is not huge. It's pretty big, but it's not huge. But I mean, I grew up caddying pretty much on campus and lived right there. Like, there's not many places there. I might not have been there as what it exists today, but you know, a lot of them I have. I'll Google it real quick and find out if it's the same.
Pete and Trey, you
let
guys know what I'm talking about? With a reminder.
Yeah,
that was the tattoo guys, right?
I don't know. I just think it was the Chop House is what everyone calls it. I don't know the actual establishment.
Yeah, I remember when all that went down. But well, that's we can transition. Let's talk a little bit of the league. You know, 2024 just wrapped up. We were down there at Murray for your final event, which congratulations to Bailey Gay on that win. You know, life-changing money. And then Kyle Welcher wrapped up AOI in you know, a very close race that came down to the last day of the Derby. So that's always super fun, you know, to watch that AOI race. So there, you know, there's been some changes we know coming for 2025. We kind of wanted to talk a little bit about some of those. In particular, you know, Trey, I don't know if you want to lead or I can. You know, you're going away from fixed TV with the league. I think Brad had a little bit of a press release about it, and there's been some questions around exposure for the anglers when they are out there fishing with y'all. So just curious if you can share any of the plans for 2025 and what that looks like as far as angler exposure and, you know, being able to view the events.
So, you know, we try to listen to everybody. Like while you always put on these filters of like, you have to filter through like some folks that are just, obstinate or obnoxious and like how they handle themselves or conduct themselves. A lot of folks took issue with the process by what they had to watch the NPFL, buffering, just different things in relation to how you consume as a fan. I am proud to say, as of right now, I have confirmed with the new production partner that we're utilizing, it will be available through YouTube and a multitude of standard forms of how people watch. So it should be one click on it and go in and watch it. They're talking to some different streaming partners and things of that nature, but we will be YouTube compatible for next year as of right this instant. So we've got some different stuff working production-wise that I'd be more comfortable letting Brad come on later down the road once I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and things of that nature, if to go into all the detail. But yeah, it will be available on YouTube, and we try to listen and make that stuff happen. We had to work out a contract with our previous partners, and we did that, and we feel like it'll be a lot better for folks to watch, you know, moving forward.
Look, I'm excited for that. I mean, I'm a big YouTube guy. I'm always watching YouTube and stuff. And some of the things you mentioned about fix, I experienced those problems this past year too, you know, trying to go on and buffering and selecting folks and having it up. Some of that I think was because, you know, on a couple of days, the service didn't work out there, and other times it's just a little complicated. So going to YouTube is going to be great. I think when you guys were on before, or at least I think one other time, I don't think like you guys had mentioned any viewership difference between Fix and YouTube. But I know as a consumer, as someone who's a fan of the league, like the convenience is going to be it's going to be awesome. You know, just as a fan out there.
Awesome. We're excited for it. So now in relation to specific angler coverage, one thing that always amazes me is people don't understand how powerful the website is. You know, like I realize that, you know, it's all marketing and it's all click through and it's all timelines and everything else. Since we brought Ken Duke on to manage all that for us, our website traffic continues to grow exponentially. The articles and stuff that are going up there are very detailed, and that there is a wealth of information through website. And if folks aren't going to the National Professional Fishing League.com or TNPFL.com, they need to go check it out. There's a ton of information. We've got some good folks who are running pretty regular articles for us. Hunter Bogman's one of those. Hunter Sales is one of those. We've got a multitude of anglers who have committed to giving us regular content. And then, like for instance, at Saginaw this year on the off day, Ken and our content creator group were able to go down to the boat ramp on the off day. I think they got 120 videos that day. So, like, we try to schedule this stuff and offer it up for the guys to utilize. It amazes me the number of guys that don't take advantage of it. Because Fat Cat, if he's on site for practice, and the Twin Visuals Media, Tanner Lyons and Travis Lyons, they're at the boat ramp every morning. They're at the boat ramp every afternoon. Like, we do get a lot of like pertinent content, and really as a consumer, that's where you get a lot of the nuggets. That's where, like, if you're listening, guys are secretive during practice, but a lot of that stuff we tell them, hey, this won't air until after the event. And like, they just open the floodgates. If you're looking for like that top secret, like fluke change, this or that, like, you dig around on the website and look at a lot of those how-to videos and stuff, you're going to see a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I know Josh Watkins, he's part of writing those articles. He was really honored and talked to me about it, saying he was going to be publishing on the website and stuff, and we helped him share some of that content. But basically, are you saying this, Paul, like, if an angler wants to get behind a camera when Twin Visuals is out there or anything like that, like, they have the opportunity to step forward and put themselves out there to help get their name, their brand, market for their sponsors, whatever the case may be. They can actually take advantage by volunteering to do it. Is that what I'm hearing?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, we put the resources to work out there. And it does take a little bit on their part. And there's a lot of folks who are just, they're trying to be humble. I've talked to a bunch of them, but like, once the guys like get comfortable with it, and hey, y'all know, doing this show, it's not easy to sit and stare at like truth be told, I'm not looking at three people having a conversation. I'm staring at a phone on my desk in front of a laptop and another monitor, and it's just weird talking, especially if it's not, this is a conversation we're having. If you're recording a video, it's not easy for anybody. One thing that I've learned from the guys who get really good at it, just do it over and over and over and over again. And don't worry about how you sound. Some people are going to like, regardless of what you put out. Some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it. Those are going to be your minority or your far ends. And the majority of people are going to just like enjoy it and be like, man, I learned something,
Well, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Like, getting in front of a camera or getting behind the camera, speaking in public, things like that. Like, there's no better training than repetition for it. But for a small consulting fee, any of your anglers are more than happy can contact us. We'll walk them right through the process. No, I'm just kidding. There's a little plug for you. On the angler exposure topic, and Pete, glad you guys brought that up. One of the things you guys were doing that was pretty consistent for a while was the My Story deal that was airing on YouTube, which I found fascinating. It's really cool I think it's called My Story. If I'm inaccurate, kick me in the face or whatever. But is that something that we're going to continue seeing out of, the angler field is something similar to that? Because I think that really helped give a lot of those anglers exposure, walking them through their lives. Not everybody has the opportunity to jump on a podcast, even though if you are interested and you have a cool story, get a hold of myself, Ben, and Pete. And we'll entertain the conversation, but not everybody has the ability to get behind the camera. So if there's one afforded to you, take advantage of it. But are we going to see something like that continue going forward into 2025?
Yeah, 100%. I don't know that it'll be that exact format in relation to it. We're always looking for more ways to tell more people's story. Like, 100% of what we do is soft sell, and storytelling is what's relatable to the folks out there. We try to, the goal is to tell everybody's story, in a deeper, fashion. That being said, Ken Duke is managing a lot of that stuff, and like some of the formats, you may see it like change just a little bit, but that's primarily our goal with the angler field is like, hey, we got to tell people who you are, what you are, how you do, because there's a lot of really, really good anglers out there with really good stories, and they're just scared to put it out there, honestly. Some of them, they say it's, hey man, I just want to be humble, or I don't, we do have some guys that say, look man, I'm not a social media guy, I don't want to be a social media guy, I run this size company over here day in and day out, I just want to show up and fish and try to win money, and they're the paying customer, so we let them do that, but we would love to have the bandwidth and ability to tell way more stories. So Ken might change up some of the formats, but you are going to hear a lot of that. If there's any recommendations, if there's anybody's story you want to hear, Alexander Wilson out of Alabama is a good example. And I don't know exactly what he does in the medical field, but I believe he's a heart surgeon, but I don't want to like misquote or misrepresent something. It's a little bit of a spoiler alert if they haven't aired it yet, but there's a story about him working on somebody and then like 2 hours later undergoing heart surgery himself. There's just all kinds of crazy things. Timmy Reams, one of the best anglers we've had since day one, is a emergency room nurse. Once again, I'm loose on a lot of the terminology in relation to this, but I think that's the way it's been conveyed to me. Nobody would know that about Timmy, but yeah, that's a cool story, and we got lots of people taking care of lots of other folks, and we are working hard to try and tell more of those stories.
No, that's awesome, man. Yeah, you never know somebody until you get them behind the camera, you get them in a room and crack a beer or whatever and have that conversation. Because I couldn't tell you 95% of what people do for their day job. Heck, I learned today through having a conversation with you earlier what you did part of your day job, and then learning that you're trying to be Steven Seagal there. And
no, not at all. Like I'm a baby bird in a nest when it comes.
Are you a white belt right now?
100% white belt. 100%. Yeah, and I don't there's so much I don't know in that world. I don't talk about it. I don't. Here's the deal. Like when you manage things, when you manage chaos like I do, you have to have some things that you kind of keep you grounded. I play a lot of golf. I love golf. I grew up playing golf. The boys are getting into it. I've got 17 and 18-year-old boys. One just turned 17, the other just turned 18. 18-year-old girl that turns 19 in February, and a 20-year-old girl that turns 21 in March. The boys are into golf like we're going to go play tomorrow. That type of deal on Christmas Eve. I called the boss man today and I said, hey, like nobody's at the shops. Like most of the factories are going to be closed. Although if anybody does need anything from Hog Farmer, they are shipping on Christmas Eve.
Are they really?
Yeah, 100%. Hog Farmer is, you go on and order from Hog Farmer's website, there's a chance it's going to be in a box and on its way on Christmas Eve. A lot of the companies we represent on the sales side, like smaller companies, and they're working hard and hustling. Galen down there and Scott do a great job, and Galen confirmed he's going to be boxing stuff up and shipping it on Christmas Eve to stay ahead of the wave. That being said, I like playing golf. I do try to stay pretty grounded in my faith, even though I still cuss, spit, drink, fight, do whatever we got to do to get stuff done, drink beer, all that type of stuff. I still am worldly. But I'm literally just starting in this jiu-jitsu stuff. And I can tell you, if you've ever done it, I've done other stuff, like I think it was judo in college, and tried some different Krav Maga. Like I went and took Krav Maga for, I don't know, almost a year and a half. I know nothing about jiu-jitsu, and it will probably remain that way for the next 30 years. But I'm gonna go 3 to 4 days a week, and like, man, I'm not a small guy and I'm not a unathletic guy, but when a 200 pound dude sits on your chest, it 100% will humble you when you're like, you got to get out and you got to figure it out, you know. It's a cool thing, and I do it early morning, and you know, but no, I'm an infant in that world. I know nothing about it.
There's got to be an MPFL angler that's like some sort of like Chuck Norris level, like extreme black belt. We'll find out. But staying on that exposure piece, and then I'll back up so Ben and Pete can ask. But the other thing that the MPFL has been doing for a long time are the community outreach programs. Every time you go to a different state that hosts you guys, is that something you guys are going to continue doing moving
100%,
forward?
Yeah, 100%. So I was on the phone with Clarendon County this morning talking about it. They've got a new tourism lady over it, and just kind of going through some brief description and stuff. And really and truthfully, man, like that's we don't advertise that a whole lot, or we don't talk about it openly with the public a whole lot, because we don't want to, like, that's our way to give back. And it truly does make you feel good. We did one late in the year last year, and it was at a senior citizens center, just a food bank type deal where you're feeding the senior citizens, and in some of those people still follow the anglers who were there and attended it. You know, we've been to battered women's shelters, kid shelters, dog shelters, you know, year 1 or year 2 at Grand, one of the anglers, and we didn't tell him to, he just felt led to, but he adopted a dog, and that dog literally stayed in the boat. He earned a camera. The dog came up on stage and weighed in on him. It looked like the dog had been fishing for 20 years. And you know, some of them are like actual outreach to kids and all that type of stuff, but it really does make you feel good. The anglers who do participate, I will say there is a correlation between how well they fish and how much they participate in that outreach type stuff. There's a lot of guys that they will not miss. I don't think Hunter Bogman's ever missed one. Will Harkins is always there. Richard Key's always there. There's a pile of them who are. Stephanie Hemphill-Peller and Will Colley. I can go through and name a bunch of Alex Wilson, since he joined, I'll mention his name, out of Alabama again. He's been to every outreach that he could make. That he was physically in there was one he missed because he wasn't in the state yet. But anglers come back to us and they're like, hey man, you know, want to come back here and do this again, you know, that type of deal. But it's not just related to that type of organized outreach. We had one event, and I want to say Mark Schilling was a big participant in it, and I wish I could remember exactly where it was. There was a group of anglers camping at a campground. There was a kid who was fishing at the local little campground pond, and like all of them individually reached out to this kid. Well, like one of them got a hold of the parents. This kid was riding in boats through the weigh-in. He was on stage like 4 different times. Like, I'll never forget the first one that really hit me wide open. There was a picture of a good buddy of mine. He doesn't fish with us anymore, but Chris Canute. He's out of South Carolina. He's down there around y'all, Kiowee. He works for Duke Energy. Chris is a phenomenal human being. Somebody snapped a picture. It wasn't our folks, but somebody snapped a picture that was like on a local website, local paper, maybe, that type of deal. Chris is in the middle of his day of competition, and they get a picture of him handing baits and a hat to a kid on the dock. Chris didn't know anybody was watching. Chris didn't know anybody was looking, and, you know, that happened. It's like, man, we've got the right people fishing with us. You know, it makes you feel good when guys are truly as appreciative to where they're going out and doing this stuff, and not because somebody's going to say something. Chris doesn't even fish with us anymore. He's not getting anything for like he's just a good dude doing the right thing at the right time, and somebody happened to catch it. I'll tell you one more quick great story. Typically when we go to these events, while the guys blast off and they're out fishing and stuff, we go to grab breakfast or whatever. And this was in Wisconsin. I believe this was in Wisconsin as well. I can remember the hotel perfectly. we're sitting there, and this dude comes up. He's got a Vietnam vet hat on or whatever, and a big dude. And he's like, y'all run this fishing tournament that's going on? Like, just said it very curt and coarse. And I'm like, Brad and I look at each other and we're like, oh man, this can't be good. we're like, yes, sir. How can we help you? You know, just, he came across very, very kind of stern to start. He said, well, I need to talk to you about your anglers. And we're like, it's just like, you just get that feeling like, oh man, what's happened now? You know, like, and we shouldn't feel like that because we got a great group of guys that do things the right way. But he said, I was bank fishing yesterday. And he said, this dude's coming down the bank towards me. And he said, this was in Wisconsin when we were at Winnebago is where it was at. That's exactly where it was at. And he said, we have all kinds of tournaments up here. He said, and I honestly think it was Josh Watkins that did it. I think it was one because John Branch wasn't fishing yet. And I want to say it was an Army boat. That being said, he said that angler stopped about 50 yards from me, went way out off the bank and around me, and then came back up 50 yards over here. He gave me, you know, he was telling us how big of an area that he gave him to pass because he was bank fishing and talked to it. He said, man, he was talking to me, you know, saying good things about me. He said he said, I didn't tell him nothing that was going on. He said he did tell me I couldn't give him any, you know, any secrets about my minnows or nothing, you know, like it was a funny deal. And we immediately said, hey, sir, like, we appreciate the feedback and everything. And invited him to come speak at the meeting. That was when we had an in-person meeting up there, and he came and but it was a great example of like, here's an angler, doesn't know anybody's going, you know, to see this, say this or whatever. And he chooses to give a wide berth to somebody bank fishing. It's just doing the right thing when nobody's looking. And we love to hear those instances. We love to hear those cases. There's a ton of them. We probably should have done a better job of writing all this stuff down, but that's why we're so protective over the culture that we've created. And that's why we're so particular about the anglers that we do work with and that we maintain, you know, in the league. And we just hope to keep adding more anglers of that kind of quality in class to the field as we do get new folks coming in.
Yeah, I mean, Hunter Bogman shared a story today just from the Murray tournament on his socials where I guess he ran into a guy that was crappie fishing under a bridge, and they had a conversation, and he went around and avoided that guy. And the guy found Hunter's email and sent him an email and said, hey, I just want you to know I really appreciate, you know, you not making a deal going around. We were fishing kind of the same area. How'd you end up doing in the tournament? And those are the kind of interactions, you know, that folks remember. So, yeah, it's awesome. Like, just we see it time and time again when we come to the events, and we keep. I'll say it, and I know Trey and Ben will, until we're all blue in the face. Like, if you're anywhere near one of these events, you need to go check it out because it's a completely different atmosphere from any of the other major tournament trails that I've attended weigh-ins and stuff for. It's awesome.
And that's the hardest thing for us, whether it be selling to sponsors, selling to anglers, whatever it might be. Like, I use the term different, but I always immediately followed up with the clarification of like, hey, don't use my words against me. Different doesn't mean better. Like, everybody gets to do their own thing, and I enjoy bass weigh-ins. You know, I've been to Red Crest a couple times and enjoy the show and enjoy the event, and I've got friends that fish all this stuff. That being said, different is the word that we profess, and we got people who have been going to fishing tournaments for, you know, 20, 30, 40 years, and when they show up, they're like, man, it's just a different feel, a different vibe, a different experience, you know. And yes, we do encourage, come out, bring the kids. You know, it's a very interactive experience that we provide with the anglers. You know, when you got a bunch of the anglers hanging around cheering on their roommates and stuff. Usually on day 3, you're going to see a pile of anglers hang in late in the event. You know, they may or may not be enjoying a cold beverage based on state laws and park laws and all that type of stuff. But it's just a very laid back experience that, and we do want to continue that and maintain that. So I appreciate you saying that, Pete.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying what you did too. Yeah, different doesn't mean better, but different is different, and it's just a different feel as a consumer. Obviously we get a little bit different being media and our relationship with you. We get access to some areas that maybe everybody doesn't, but even if you're just there as a consumer, you're right there with the anglers. You have the opportunity to talk to them. They're mingling around, with the regular people. It's not like they're all standing behind the stage. They're out there with the folks that are there watching the weigh-in, hanging out and talking, and it's really sort of refreshing to see. Just something different, a different experience for the consumer, and there's nothing wrong with having different and having choices as an angler or a consumer to check them all out.
So speaking of different, you got, I want to hit on the national championship a little bit. Not the last one that happened, but the one going forward. So something different that you guys do in the MPFL last year. Well, I guess it was this year, right? Yeah. This year was the 2023 championship for those who qualified. You guys had it at Lake Amistad. We saw our good buddy Jesse Wise catch the record size largemouth on camera. I think a 10.9 pound largemouth. And you and Brad talked about, doing something that was different compared to what most national championships are, where they have like expos and all that kind of stuff. It was very angler driven, and special for them. And you don't have to get into the details, but what are some of the biggest lessons learned from having that inaugural championship that you're going to move into this year? I think where's it at this year? It's on Hartwell.
Yep.
Yeah, it's on Hartwell. So
being Hartwell in October.
So. Yep.
And I wanted to jump in here and ask this question because I think we all know the answer to it, but for everyone watching or listening, the schedule came out for 2025, and the 2024 championship is in October, which is after their 2025 season completed, which is different than it was last year when it was March. So I think that was after the second tournament of the season. So if you want to talk about kind of along the lines of Trey, like why that decision was made to move the championship of the previous year to the end of the next season, and then any other, just follow up on Trey's question. Any other,
like lessons learned?
Yeah.
Well, there's a multitude of reasons why it's in October. One being because Neil Paul wants it in October. That's not the sole reason. Like, we've been to Hartwell 3 times now, and all of them have been in the spring. One of them was a little fallish, but like, Hartwell's a great lake in October. We want to go in October and see what these guys can do. One thing that we try to be real cognizant of is throwing these guys curveballs in relation to time of year, different things. Y'all know you can go to a lake 6 different times a year and see essentially 6 different fisheries, that type of deal. So, having predominantly been to Hartwell in the spring the majority of the time, when Neil said he wanted the championship, and Neil is a great partner of ours out of Green Pond. Green Pond's just a wonderful place to hold a tournament. The volunteer staff that you get there is great. The logistics as far as guys getting in the water, getting out of the water, getting around the stage, it's all one singular place right there. Hartwell's a phenomenal fishery. Anderson County is a wonderful place to go spend for week and a half. But we wanted to kind of showcase the lake at a different time of year, that type of deal. There's going to be just big bags caught there throughout that time of year. It's a little less pressure from all of the fishing. So they should be past any kind of turnover situation or anything of that nature. They should be able to go and showcase some really, really good fall fishing. And we don't want to be pigeonholed into, like, if we decide, hey, there's a great lake in Japan that, fishes great in December, like short of Christmas, like, we're going to go do that just because it might be cool for somebody to see it. We don't want to create a situation to where we're pigeonholed into, hey, we're going to have the championship this month or this month. Summer championship would be a great deal. We find the right lake with the right partner. don't think that a summer championship, isn't a potential out there.
Awesome.
And our deal in relation to the show and all this stuff's, we gotta focus on the fishing. Like the classic didn't become the classic, for 30 years, 35 years into when was the first classic? I don't even remember, or not I shouldn't say the first classic. What was the first like big show that accompanied the classic? Like we got a long way to go before we get there, but we've talked about it and like what would it take and all that type of stuff, and we just got to focus on making the Anglers Championship special and really pushing the initiative for them, first and foremost.
Yeah.
We'll get into the commercial side of it later down the road, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys made that pretty clear last year to us that, it was all about the anglers. It's not about vendors. It's not about, you tried to air it, when you guys were in Amistad. Obviously, there's some technical difficulties, but, outside the scheduling piece that Ben talked about, is there anything from your perspective that you guys are going to do differently that was like, man, we can't do this next time? It was a fail on our end or on the municipality's end or whatever, or there's big success and you're like, we're going to sustain that.
No, I think, man, like, getting it done was the first thing, that tackled one hurdle of a preconceived issue. But everybody was complaining about going to Amistad. There were water issues. It is a long way. It is a long way from everywhere. It's not easy to get to. That being said, after they caught them, like everybody's like, let's come back. I want to come back next year. Let's come back next year. Yeah, so we learned 10 things at every event, not just the championship, but like we kind of each individually take our own kind of tally at what we're doing well and what we need to work on, and then we circle back around after the event. Brad, Al, myself, Michelle, Mike, Kathy, like everybody involved, and we also get feedback from various folks in various places, and we try to compile all that and say, okay, can we change this? Should we change this? So there were some lessons learned, things of that nature, but nothing overly significant. The 2020, one thing we did change is like it's called the 2025 championship, even though it's from the 2024 year. It is confusing, and we still argue about it to this day. But Brad says, "Hey, it's 2025 championship. It's happening in 2025. You qualify for the 2025 championship in the competition year of 2024."
Yeah.
As it continues to grow and we get a couple more winners in it, like each story will pile on the other, and it will make its own way organically. Like we don't try to force anything in relation to any of it. But there are valuable lessons learned at every event, and hopefully it's that way, for the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know it's called the 2025 Championship, qualifying 2024. I know that I know the answer. I know Trey knows the answer. I know Ben knows the answer. But for anybody listening who might not know, obviously there's a pretty significant rules change for 2025 with not allowing, a piece of technology. We're not going to get into that debate. We all know everybody's feelings on that, and I'm tired of talking about it. But so that championship is going to follow 2024 rules, correct? You're going to allow
yes.
forward-facing sonar in.
Anybody that qualified, they compete under the same rules that they qualified under. So you will see forward-facing sonar in the championship at Hartwell in October.
Okay.
Awesome.
I have one other question on championship rules, and this is just out of pure curiosity. So championship for the MPFL is the top 40. It's 40 boats, not top 40, but 40 boats, correct?
Technically you can get up to 46 boats because you got a win and you're in scenario.
Okay.
So now typically you're not going to have 6 boats outside the top 40 that win events. But I shouldn't say, we never speak in definites.
Yeah.
But like like this year we had
One.
Brandon Perkins won the championship, and he was outside the top 40. And I think there's one more. I don't think Nick Brown was out of the top 40. I can look it up on my.
Look it up. So what you're saying is that next year it's either going to be 41 or 42, but you don't drop down.
40. I think it's 42 boats.
Okay, 40. So you don't drop down. So saying 5 people.
You don't do anything for double qualification, yeah.
Yeah. There's no double qualifications, and you're dropping.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. The only way that extra boat gets in is if they win an event and they're outside of the top 40.
So that means
I think there was one this year, if I remember when I was looking at the points.
I'm looking at it, trying to find. You got Brandon Perkins. And Nick Brown. It was Nick Brown who was.
Okay.
He finished 64th in points, but he won that event at Lake of the Ozarks. So you'll have 42 in the championship field next year.
42. So like for everyone listening, it's not like Bassmaster where you may have guys like sitting 43rd or 44th in AOI, and based upon double qualifications, either from opens or winning there's a couple other winning your in tournaments, I think, in Bass too. So some people a little lower in the standings or sometimes sneak in there, back their way in, as like the football analogy, back their way into the class. But that doesn't happen in the NPFL. It's either you got to be top 40, and if you're not, you have to win one. Otherwise, better luck next year.
Yeah, I like it. I think there's probably some anglers that are close to that bubble that aren't huge fans of that, but I get it. So it's a little bit different than some of the other ones with dropping down and you can't double qualify, things like that. So again, you're doing your own thing, and we always appreciate that from the league. So I have a question related to roster. You're looking, obviously, have yet to have a full field. Hopefully this year's the 130 boat full field. Can you give any roster updates? I know the application process is either closed or it closes very soon. Anything you want to talk about on that? Because I know I've seen some questions out there in social media land around the roster.
So as of today, right now, we've got 109 signed contracts. So technically you're not in the field till you pay your deposit. There is verbiage in the contract. Like if you sign a contract, you gotta pay your deposit. Like you can't say, "Oh man, I'm in," and then people will still do it. There may be one or two on this list of 109 that don't pay a deposit, and they won't be in the league. That's why we haven't shared the list to date.
Yeah.
There's probably another 30, 40, contracts that have been sent out. We have added a lot more elite anglers. I do want to address one thing real quick, because there was a podcast done in relation to the list of anglers coming. It was done on another YouTube channel by one of the drama queens out there. And here's the deal: we don't put this list out. It's not our business, and we don't like say, "Oh well, James Watson's coming to fish," until James Watson does a video or tells his sponsors and fans that he's coming to fish. It's his deal. Like it doesn't benefit me any to like go out there and say, "Oh, James Watson's fishing." As much as I love James, like it's his deal and his responsibility to tell his sponsors, fans, anglers. The list that was put out was shared confidentially internally, and somebody put it in the hands of this YouTube drama queen that, when I don't say somebody's name, like I'm not trying to hide it or whatever, it gives it power,
Sure.
That's the only reason why I don't like really it's not that big of a deal and it's not significant, but like he thought he was doing something to help the world because I'm going to get the top secret list out that somebody shared with me behind the scenes when they shouldn't have. Guy hides behind voicemail. He's just not a productive member of our industry, and that's the only reason why I don't say the people's names. I'm not worried about them. They're insignificant. But that being said, he only mentioned like 4 elite guys. I will say this. every elite guy that signed up is fishing boats, to my knowledge. They want to fish both. That's why we want to deconflict schedules, is to give them the opportunities. I wish that NPFL, Bass, and BPT, MLF could sit in a room and could deconflict weeks. We don't have to say where we're going. We don't have to like share all the deal. I've offered opportunities to both leagues, and both of them are like, well, man, we'd love to deconflict with you, but not the other guys, and it's like, well, I hate to hear that. I wish we could all deconflict. At the top level, I think it's, like 27 events by my count, 28 events, somewhere around in there. And when you take out all the holidays, you take out Christmas, Mother's Day, Easter, all that stuff, I think it's 34 or 35 fishable weeks. Take out the whole month of December, the whole month of January, then start taking out 4th of July, all that stuff. There's like 34 weeks.
Yeah, not a lot.
And we should be able to sit in a room, and this was my recommendation directly to both of them. Sit in a room at OneCast. Nobody has to watch it. Nobody has to know what's going on, at least for the first year. If we were smart, we'd be selling sponsorship partnerships or dollars to it and do it like a draft type situation. But let the Classic pick first. Let Red Crest pick second, and then go down the line. I'll be the dude that goes third. I'm happy to know our place and all that deal. And deconflict and let these anglers actually make serious money. If somebody like John Cox, who's literally certifiably insane with how much he fishes, he'd fish all three. I promise you. We have guys that fish multiple organizations, and they're throwing entry fees away when they do it. $5,000. And to them, it's gambling. And they're like, well, I'm willing to throw away $5,000 over here for the potential to win another $80,000 or $90,000 throughout the year. That's the way that they look at it, and that's great. But the video that was put out in relation to the anglers who are coming over, it was, they hate the cheater box. They hate forward-facing sonar. No, they don't. They want to fish more and make more money. That's it. And the majority of them that are coming over, as far as I know, 100% of the guys that fish another league are fishing too. And that's great. I think that's awesome. We shouldn't say that it's something that it's not. That's just ignorant.
Bass just released their roster for, like I said at the beginning, for anyone interested, you can go to Bass's website and check that out, and we'll do a deep dive on it. And then once the NPFL releases their roster, or releases the information, if they do, then you can bounce that information off from it. But at the end of the day, I agree with you, Paul. Like, it's the anglers' business, and they'll put it out there when they need to put it out there, because they're tied to so many different companies, and it's unfair for anyone else to leak their information out there and potentially, create an issue with a relationship with a partner or a sponsor. So that's just good business practice. Just leave your business, and their business, So
yeah, we're killing it. December 27th. Everybody has till December 27th. If there's some dude out there that, I doubt this won't air before December 27th, will it?
No.
What's the 24th? 25th is Wednesday. Yeah, it'll come out on the 26th.
26th.
Oh, okay. So if it's coming out Thursday the 26th, guys, get your application in.
Yeah.
Text Brad or I and say, hey, man, I've got my funds right. I'm a level-headed dude.
You have 24 hours.
Problems.
Pete, get ready.
Hey, year one, I had two guys, two anglers. Knew them both. They wanted to bring their full entry fees for the year in cash to the boat ramp at Lake Fall, Alabama. If the audio blips or whatever, we were this close to letting them, and we're like, we can't do that, We're cutting it off at the 27th. We're fishing with what we got, and it's going to be a heck of a year. There's a lot of money that's going to be won, and there's a lot of great new people coming to fish with us. Watson already made his video. I'm excited to have Watson fishing. We have a lot of guys. Zach Burge talks about our culture and what we've created and how much fun he has fishing. That does me good to hear that. That's what keeps me in the fight, having done this. And not just me. There's 6 owners, and nobody's taking a dime out of it. Mike and Kathy Como have made a huge financial investment in this company. huge personal financial investment in this company. They're my family, man. They're
Yep.
and like
Absolutely.
we've been in the ditch, we've been in the blood and the mud and everything else, and we're fighting, and we're right on the crest of this thing, just going. And I truly feel like 2025 is going to be the year for that. It's going to be fun, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well,
Yeah,
I want to ask.
yep.
I want to ask one last question here.
Yeah.
And this is a question that you asked us, so I'm going to reverse it on you. It was on an episode that's not going to air. What event? What event are you most looking forward to in 2025, Mr. Paul Benson?
Single line item event, and we have had this conversation on a podcast that won't air, at least in the immediate future for an undetermined amount of time. But man, I like new places.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say either Messina or Dandridge. You know, we have a lot of really, really good partners. Like I said, I was talking to Clarendon County, which is the Santee Cooper chain of lakes, earlier today. She's real fired up to see, you know, what we're all about. But I'm probably going to say I'm probably going to go with Dandridge just because Messina is that much further. Like when you add that mileage to it, it just provides an extra level of stress and workload that goes into it. It's phenomenal fishery up there. That town is all in. They are doing some sort of festival associated with what we do, so we'll have a pretty big event up there. But Dandridge is one of those low-key areas and lakes where it's a fishing town, man. They will show out in East Tennessee for an event. You know, so I'm probably going to say that's going to be one of my favorite on the list of what we're doing. It's a prime time of year, and I don't think anybody, you know, Gold lives up there on it. Hunter Sales is up there right on it. So those guys, you know, have some knowledge and history and all that type of stuff. But there's going to be a lot of guys doing a lot of different stuff without live scope. So I don't think there's a ton of like information and knowledge out there on that body of water. Messina is going to be a huge curveball with no forward-facing sonar. Like people have been watching century belts and 100-pound bags caught up there by other organizations, but we're going to truly see whether or not the technology makes a difference in the event, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one. Obviously, I'm excited for Norman because it's in our backyard, but I'm really excited for that event up there on the St. Lawrence, just because I grew up fishing the North before, you know, we had that technology, and you know, we went out there and caught them, for lack of a better term, the old school way, and seeing a little bit of that come back to me is exciting. So I'm really looking forward to that event.
I mean, it's going to go back to like 10 years ago when you watch tournaments up there. They're going to be all on their 2D flashers, the 2D graphs, the sensitivity, and the speed turn weight up so you can video game fish with you know, vertically with your drop shot. I mean, that's the way it was done before you know, the forward facing stuff came out.
You know,
we might have done a little bit of that.
I told a couple, or one of your anglers, particularly Paul. I was like, hey, better buy a flogger. He said, I ain't buying no daggum flogger. I said, dude, that was forward-facing sonar before forward-facing sonar was even talked about. Let's go.
Which angler was it, so I can call him out when he shows up with 3 floggers?
With 3 floggers?
His name rhymes with Seth Ellis.
Bro, Seth, let me tell you something. I love Seth Ellis to death. He is not. I will agree. Seth Ellis ain't buying no flogger. When you're
no
7 feet, 310, 290, whatever he is, like you're not crawling in the bottom of the boat to flog all day. Like his feet will be like hanging off the other side. He can't, you know, he ain't running no flog unless he gets a 7.5 foot tall flogger. He ain't messing with it.
He might have like an extendable flogger so he can stand up and look.
Yeah.
So you might see the first. Man, we used to do that with a road. You would take a road cone and before floggers were a thing, we were using road combs.
Yeah.
Just to break that surface tension and be able to see those fish in deep water. So it's been around for a long time. I know another organization caught a lot of flack for their guys using it at an event. People were talking a lot of smack, but we've been doing that in the North for a long time. So,
well, Paul, here's the deal. You just tell your anglers, like, listen, if you're not going to invest in a flogger, you use the OneCast link to Hobie Eyewear, get you a pair of those floating frame sight masters, pay $83 for them, and you'll be able to see those smallies no problem, especially in the overcast conditions and stuff. So I'm with Pete though, and I think Ben's along the same lines, but I'm looking forward to biggest thing. I'm looking forward to Norman. There's a couple reasons why. Personal and selfish reason. I want to steal intelligence from any single angler that's out there beating the brakes off those fish when they're on the bed. I want to see what's pumping out the biggest bags. Because, we fish that area too. Secondly, it's in our backyard, so we're going to be able to drive over there, spend some time with you gentlemen, because we always have a great time when we do that, maybe do a media ride along. And thirdly, it's great for the communities. It's great for the communities in North Carolina, specifically out west a little bit more. Those areas were impacted by Hurricane Helene. And so, more money that we can bring in and stimulate the economy, whether or not that's be through the hotels, the restaurants, it doesn't matter. Fill your gas tanks up. We're looking forward to, the MPFL providing support. We also, and, you let us know, because maybe we could participate in this if you're going to do a community outreach program, and we can get involved in any way. That's something I'd be very interested in getting our hands on too. So anything that we can do to help out the local communities, we're all about it. So, but Paul, that's all I got on my end. Ben, Pete, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Do you know what my biggest concern on Norman is?
Pleasure boat traffic?
No.
April.
The question is, like, is Tater going to give up all his juice on a camera, or is he going to just like lay back and not catch nothing? He'll be out there, like, because he probably makes 3 times at the house on Norman.
Yep.
Well, I mean, technically 100 times, and I'm not picking on you, Tater. I love you to death, but is he actually going to go for it and try to win in his backyard, or is he going to just go fish random stuff to throw all the locals off so that they're not up there in the river, catching all his pets, I
think there'll be a little juice he might give, but you're right. That dude wins so much money locally on that lake, and I know there's dudes licking their chops for the opportunity to get some of his juice. So I think he'll probably be a bit conservative on what he does give up.
But you know what though, you got to admit though, that time of year, and you can say this there's definitely some secrets when it comes to the spawn, but for the most part, the spawn is so unpredictable. Now, if you were going there and you were in a true summertime pattern or a true pre-spawn pattern, and who knows what it will be, by the way, when you get there, because weather dictates everything. But for the most part, outside of I just don't see him having to really be that secretive, because, if they're on the bed, they're on the bed. Now, that being said, there are certain creeks that are better than other creeks during the spawn on that 44,000 plus acre lake. And if you guys ever get the chance, I think we said it in the episode that's not going to drop, man, I'd love to see you guys come back here. Go to Bugs Island. Obviously, we know that's got plenty of room on it for a regular season event. And then, heck, even if you could swing it for a championship deal here in the Piedmont region, we got giant largemouth bass, particularly in that February, March time frame would be ideal.
Or early June.
And yet you guys are going to have I think it's going to be a hell of a show too. How you guys are capturing it, not having that technology. You're going to see a lot of diversity in the field. Not to say that you don't now, but I think you're going to see, I hate saying old school, Pete. You said it earlier, like old school tradition.
Yeah, I don't like it either, but we're kind of at that new school, old school.
Because we use forward facing sonar for one tournament this year. Like one tournament, that's where forward facing sonar. I know we're not fishing for $100,000, so it might be a different story, but I think you're going to see some really interesting things, and I can't wait to see somebody, if they can drag a big Carolina rig or flip big jigs and stuff like that, you know, because I mean, that's just awesome. So I'm looking forward to it, man.
Bro, Norman is going to get decimated. Like
in a good way.
Well, I mean, it's not just Tater Secrets. Like, we have a North Carolina contingent. That's why.
Yes, you do.
That's why when we came in and said, "Hey, man, you know, gotta get this last event on the schedule," I told Brad, man, like, we've got dudes been fishing with us for 4 years waiting for a North Carolina event. Like, we had some latitude in where we were going for the last event, and we just said, man, our North Carolina lake works great logistically. Like, we're going from Clarendon County to Norman to Dandridge. Like, just everything lines up. And the North Carolina boys, we got, you know, Jason Wilson, Richard Cooper. I'm saying some names that re-signed up that may not have announced it yet, but I don't think they care. You know, Seth Ellis, Hooks. Really, we've got a few elite anglers coming from that direction, who I won't name. But like, Norman should be an absolute bloodbath with the but that's one thing I'll say about Norman. It's not just our event, bro. You go to a lot of these fisheries. I can remember years ago, Buddy Gross wasn't allowed to fish Chick or Nickajack. Sometimes Gunnersville tournaments wouldn't let him fish because he was a FLW Tour pro. This is before he qualified for the elites, and then into Kelly Jagg lived on Lake Martin. Back when he was an elite angler, they wouldn't let him fish some tournaments.
Right.
You know, that's and which I've never understood, you know, and it's guys running their company, so we'll let them do it. But you go to a Tuesday nighter at Norman, you got Matt Airy, Shane LaHue, Brian New, David Williams, Tracy Adams, Hank Cherry, Brian Thrift. Then you get into like the locals like Rob Dye and different folks like that. Scott, Matt Haywood, like there are just so many good fishermen up in that area. Like,
there are.
If you're fishing a Tuesday nighter, you're probably a way better fisherman than you think, because you're competing. And now these local guys will put the time in to learn a bunch of stuff because they're focused on it. But I've told a bunch of people, like, if that backyard lake isn't on their schedule, they're not putting in a bunch of work to know where they're at, you know?
Yeah.
If Chickamauga or Watts Bar is not on BPT's schedule, Michael Neal is not investing a ton of time on figuring out what they're going to be doing at that time frame, you know? So, and it works like that all over the country, you know? So, like, I would rather, you know, let some of those names in and let guys fish against an elite angler, an NPFL angler, or BPT angler for $200 because they're not going to get to do it anywhere else.
I know.
Gives them something special to come do. So
yeah, it's a great feeling. You know, Pete and I, we competed against several of the NPFL guys this year in our backyard.
Like half your field is from North Carolina.
Loved trying to beat the brakes off of some of them, and it worked in some events, and some of it didn't work so well. We got humbled.
I really like talking smack to them. They weren't allowed to fish with us with their boat.
So what you need to do is, like, catch a couple of them, like at a local event, you know, before or right after the NPFL event, and invite them in to talk about the NPFL event or something. And then when they get in here, just ambush them and talk about how bad y'all tore them up. like just,
you're supposed to be a professional.
I would watch that podcast 100%. Probably share it a few.
All right, you know what? We'll do that. We'll do that.
One. I like that. That would be fun.
Yeah, we'll have to bring Seth in and talk about how we beat his butt at Bugs Island, his favorite lake in the region. Seth, I know you're going to listen to this, and I know if he wouldn't have lost that one fish, y'all would have beat us. But you know what? He lost that fish. Yeah, so you're welcome.
It's better.
Yeah. Well, hey man, you guys got anything else before we wrap this up?
No, I'm good. I appreciate you coming on, Paul. I know we're the day before Christmas Eve. Everybody, I got family out we're in Pennsylvania, got family out in the living room, so I appreciate you giving us some time.
I got one question I got to ask. Because it's the right time of year. Ben, you still make that long hook? That
Yeah.
OneCast. Where do people buy that thing at?
Yeah, I'll grab a pack here too. This is the 5/0, but it's that long shank on there. I think that one is that shank's 3.1 inches long. You just go to the website onecastfishing.com. Make sure you use the code TheOneCast, save 10% here. Give the shout out to the podcast here. But yeah, just onecastfishing.com, or if you like buying off Facebook or Instagram, we've got a shop on there too. You can just
y'all got all kinds of stuff. Y'all make good jigs, like a bunch of good stuff, and you know that's one thing you can't get anywhere else. Like people can say what they want to say, like that's innovation. It makes sense. It's a simple solution to a lot of different, you know, I'm not going to say problems, but it offers a multitude of solutions for different technique specific type stuff, and it's a pretty cool product. That's why every time I see it, I'm like, man, I wish I would have thought of something like that. So
well, I appreciate that. It's you know, it was kind of accident and got released. I've told that story before, but you know, going through different shows or having, you know, reviews or just people emailing, like the way folks have used that hook have been phenomenal.
Yeah.
You know, me personally, I'll use it for speed worms and then like a lot of bed fishing, right? Because they just pick up the tail, and so that hook is farther back. But guys are putting poppers on them. They're tying flies with them. They're doing, I think some guys are even not really a drop shot, but more like a Tokyo rig type of deal. And there's just a lot of creative ways, you know, and that's, you know, the people are different. There's different ways to catch a fish. I mean, there's whatever works best for folks, and it's a product that's helped a lot of folks out. So that's the most important part.
I'll tell you what it will do, Paul, and for anyone listening, if you like to drag a big sea rig and you like to put a big worm on that sea rig and you don't want to run that hook all the way down through your soft plastic and your lines there, and all of a sudden you're setting the hook and it's ripping your soft plastic up, like get yourself those long neck hooks, just like Ben said. Go to the website, use the code TheOneCast. It's going to save you a lot of money in soft plastics, and it solves that problem that Paul was talking about.
You just mentioned in there. You mentioned the Tokyo rig. Here's the $1 million question. I'll buy lunch for anybody who can answer it off the cuff. What's the actual name of the Tokyo rig?
Oh man, forget it. I know it, but the Tokyo rig took over as the name that you hear all the time.
Godzilla.
Well, I got it from a Japanese dude. He runs. He's the business partner for John Moy. John Moy is Lee's Global Bait and Tackle up in Chicago. If there's anything like you can Google, I think it's Algene Lures. Like if it's JDM, like this dude is the guy that brings in the majority of the stuff. But I was talking to him about the Tokyo rig, like right after it came out, and he's like, "Oh no, not Tokyo rig, Cherry rig." And I'm like, "What?" And finally I got, because I'm hard of hearing, so sometimes heavy accents, thick accents, and he doesn't. English is a second language for him, but it's called the Cherry rig. It was developed at Lake Biawah. I guess when Mike brought it over and sold it to VMC or whatever, but I've got normally it's usually one of my little boxes, but he showed me how to rig it up. I got all the parts from like Decoy and all the different companies to like make your own. You can make them really, really cheap with really, really high quality hooks, high quality swivels, all that type of stuff. But yeah, you can put that in your memory banks as things you didn't need to know. But the cherry, if you're talking to the Japanese folks, you know, Tokyo rig might be a little offensive to them. It's cherry rig over there at Lake Biawah. When we go fishing over there, you gotta say you want to throw that cherry rig.
I'm gonna tell Seth Ellis that sometimes he acts like a newbie, so I'm gonna give him a cherry rig. You know what I mean? So,
bro, you like you keep going at Seth like this. Like Seth is one of the nicest human beings I know.
Oh, yeah.
But he's also a literal giant.
I know.
Like
I know.
if that dude grabs a hold of you, we got a couple of them in the league. Like
Matt Massey's another big man.
Oh, bro, Matt. I will tell you, Matt is an awesome human being. But yeah, I don't know if it's because he's a plumber. His hands are like that long, but like you can tell if Matt Massey grabs a hold of you, you have had a bad day.
His 8 pound, because he won big fish at Lake Murray, right?
Yep.
That 8 pounder looked like a 3 pound largemouth in his hands.
Oh yeah, he's a big dude, and I'll tell you what, like a lot of these guys can drive a boat. Matt Massey will literally run a boat. He comes from Colorado originally. Did a bunch of bass fishing out in Colorado, that type of deal. But another great human being that does a good. I think we did a My Story on him. I think there's a My Story out there somewhere on Massey.
Yep, because he lives down in Florida now.
Yeah, good dude. Catches a bunch of redfish, does the saltwater stuff, and Matt Massey's one of my. That's my problem. I got like 40 or 50 favorites.
They can all they can be your favorite. It's okay. It's like kids, right? Like, hey, which is your favorite kid? Well, they're all my favorites. Why? Because they have to be.
No, they're not. They're not all my favorites. And I have no problem telling them, like there's a bunch of them. I tell them on a regular basis, like, hey man, you're a paying customer, so like let you do what you want to do, but they ain't all my favorites.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say you're gonna tell your kid, like certain kids on Christmas morning, like, hey, you're not my favorite, right?
I tell all of them that all the time.
Hence why Paul is going and learning jujitsu, because his kids are getting to that age where they can roundhouse him like Matt Massey.
Yeah, and they wrestle too, right?
Bro, I got the 18-year-old wrestles. He's doing well. He's got a goal to go to state. The 17-year-old has set a personal goal to play D1 football. He was an outside linebacker. They switched to safety about 4 games left in the season, and he's like, I love safety now. They all work really, really hard. This is where I get when we start talking about the young kids fishing and all this stuff, and you talk about video game fishing and all that. Kids today have the ability to hyper focus. I don't know if it comes from playing video games or like I don't know where it comes from, but like my wrestler hyper focuses on wrestling. The football player hyper focuses on football. The anglers who are out there, go ahead and take forward facing sonar away from them. You're going to see some of them this year. We have some anglers coming over that are forward facing sonar gurus. Forward facing sonar. They're not one dimensional. They'll go learn how to throw a jig if they don't already know it. The thing is, they're on the water every waking moment. Guarantee you, all of these kids that are getting accused of, well, they're only good because of technology or whatever, they're out here in Georgia. I guarantee you, we've had one of the coldest cold snaps in the last week and a half in Georgia that we've had in a long time. I promise you, Paul Marks Jr. and Emil Wagner are on the water without fail, because they want to be, not because they're forced to, not because sponsors say, hey, go do this. They're on the water all the time. Hayden Hammond works with us at Woods to Water Outdoors. He'll be doing sales calls, and then he'll go out at 5 o'clock at night and dump the boat in and go catch a limit, at Baden or Hickory or any of that type of stuff. So I think a lot of these young guys just have that ability to hyper focus on whatever they're doing, and they're not caught in as many distractions. And they can learn way faster because of the internet. And it's not, I'm not saying that it's easier to learn how to catch fish because of the internet. I'm saying information is just more readily available.
Yep, that's true.
I'm gonna smoke a prime rib for Christmas Eve dinner for all the kids tomorrow night. You know how many times I've done it? Zero. It's gonna be awesome as long as I take the time and don't drink too many beers and sit down and follow the instructions on the stupid internet.
Watch the YouTube videos, Paul.
Yeah. So this stuff, while a lot of us complaining about it and a lot of us say, hey, social media is the devil. Hey, social media is terrible. We got to change our mindset there, and we just have to choose to not focus on the drama, not participate in the drama, and go out and find the positive stuff that exists. Go out and find the stuff that makes people feel better and be better and, do better. And I got to hold myself accountable on all that, because there is a lot of good that can come from it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Where's
Paul-
everybody at for the holidays right now? I know Trey's in North Carolina. Pete, I'm going to assume you're in Pittsburgh. Where are you at, Ben?
I'm in North Carolina. I'm down at the house.
Okay, got you. Well, I want to extend my many thanks to y'all for having us on and being huge supporters of the league before you kick me off here. And I want to wish you, all the viewers, everybody watching, since this is going to air on the 26th, I want to wish you a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year. And I hope your Christmas was blessed, and I hope everybody got to enjoy their time with their families, because that's really what matters at the end of the day. So,
Absolutely.
And I appreciate y'all. Y'all are family. Thank you for having us on here, and going to try to do everything we can to support you and push your initiatives as well. So thank you, gentlemen.
Paul Benson, we appreciate your fellowship. Hang on just for a moment as we end this show. Ben, Pete, Merry Christmas. Paul, Merry Christmas to you and your family. We appreciate the MPFL and you helping us continue to grow a culture of anglers, helping anglers one cast at a time.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.